Colonel North has been convicted of 3 very serious felony charges: obstruction of Congress, altering and destroying official documents, and accepting an illegal gratuity. The jury has spoken after a long and difficult trial, and the principle that no man is above the law has been vindicated.
We now face many months and perhaps years of fighting the remaining charges. Nonetheless, we are absolutely confident of the final outcome. As a Marine, I was taught to fight and fight hard for as long as it takes to prevail.
This is a CBS News Special Report. The North Verdict. From CBS News headquarters in New York, here is Dan Rather.
Good evening. The man Presidents Reagan and Bush called a hero is now a convicted criminal. Oliver North, key operative in the missiles to Iran, what happened to the cash case, was found guilty today, guilty of 3 felonies, including destroying evidence. Just the first of several criminal trials with their roots in concerns that a secret clique of ideological zealots may have run policy and operations outside the American constitutional system of checks and balances. North, the retired U.S. Marine Lieutenant Colonel, was portrayed by the defense as a patriot, a follower, and a fall guy. He could now go to prison for as much as 10 years and lose his military pension. Appeal to come. Presidential pardon, President Bush is not saying. Tonight, a look at the North verdict and what it may mean. We began with CBS News law correspondent Rita Braver, who's been on the case, indictment to conviction.
Oliver North returned to his home tonight as a convicted felon, guilty of 3 counts: aiding and abetting the obstruction of Congress by creating false chronologies of U.S. arms sales to Iran in exchange for hostages, altering and destroying official U.S. documents detailing Iran-Contra activities, accepting an illegal gratuity. The jury of 9 women and 3 men looked tired and emotionally drained as they listened to Judge Gerhardt Gazelle read the verdict they had reached, which also acquitted North of 9 other counts, including making false statements and obstructing Congress when it was probing his Contra aid plan, lying to former Attorney General Edwin Meese when he conducted a fact-finding mission for President Reagan on the Iran-Contra affair, making personal use of Contra travelers' checks, and breaking the tax laws with a Contra donation scam. When it was over, North embraced his wife Betsy, and a short time later vowed to appeal the convictions.
After more than 2.5 years and over $40 million of our taxpayers' money, and now a special prosecutor who has likened me to Adolf Hitler, we now face many months and perhaps years of fighting the remaining charges.
But Prosecutor John Kecker indicated the verdict is a lesson for those who doubt this nation's commitment to the rule of law.
Some said our system of justice could not deal fairly, if at all, with this case.
And on Capitol Hill, members of Congress who also investigated the Iran-Contra affair called the verdict a fair one.
I'm not elated by the verdict. I'm not disappointed by it. I'm not surprised by it. I feel that the trial system worked well.
There were only 2 basic issues involved. Did he lie or obstruct the Congress? Did he accept gratuities as a public official? The jury said yes in both counts.
As for the jurors themselves, we spoke with Earl Williams.
He was just, but I don't think he should go to jail for it. It's a funny thing putting the man in jail. I'm against jail and things like that. I think he's a hero like he was and things.
And Judge Gazelle said that he will announce North's sentence on June 23rd. North could get up to 10 years in prison and be ordered to pay $750,000 in fines, Dan.
Rita, so the sentencing will be in June. Is that the end of the case for Oliver North?
Absolutely not. We heard North tonight, and also his attorney, Brendan Sullivan, say that there is a long road of appeals ahead of us. Already they were planning hearings to discuss whether any of these witnesses had been impacted by listening to Oliver North's testimony on Capitol Hill. This is round 4 of maybe 15 rounds for this team.
Thank you very much, Rita Braver. Joining us now is Professor Paul Rothstein of the Georgetown University Law Center, who's been following the North case closely. Professor Rothstein, thank you for being with us. What's the likelihood of this verdict being overturned on the basis of precedents and previous patterns?
There are a number of substantial points that North's lawyers will press on appeal. And whether they succeed or not really depends upon what panel in the Court of Appeals sits on this case. The law is sufficiently ambiguous in this area that there is a lot of discretion with the appellate judges. So there is a considerable risk of overturning on appeal.
Considerable chance that it can be overturned.
Yes.
You've seen many verdicts and studied them closely. How would you describe this one?
I think it was a compromise verdict expressing the ambiguity about Oliver North that the nation feels. I think it was reflected in the jury room. One of the jurors there that you showed said, we thought North was guilty of something, but that he should not go to jail. That's an ambiguous attitude. I think it reflects a commonly felt attitude, too, that a person of this standing or this class in a white-collar crime, that such a person as Oliver North does not go to jail, that the judge will be lenient on him, send him to perhaps a country club-type prison, or just fine him.
And we know that some of the jurors said they had trouble following the documents and the complications of the case. Thank you, Professor. Thank you. So, after months of maneuvering and investigation, the jury has spoken. There's a verdict in the North case. We also still have a lot of unanswered questions. In a moment, some of what we still don't know about the Iran-Contra case. So stay here with us.
By putting out this false version of the facts, you were committing, were you not, the entire administration to telling a false story?
I realize there's a lot of folks around that think there's a loose cannon on the gun deck estate at the NSC. That wasn't what I heard while I worked there. I've only heard it since I left. People used to walk up to me and tell me what a great job I was doing.
The presidential and congressional Iran Central America investigations answered some questions about the secret wheeling and dealing. The North trial, particularly through the documents introduced and evidence at it, answered a few more. CBS News correspondent Eric Ingberg looks now at some of the mysteries that remain, including what was President Reagan's role.
The trial of Oliver North was confined to a few edges of the Iran-Contra scandal, leaving many issues unsettled, perhaps forever. Was President Reagan completely unwitting of the decision by aides to fund the Contras with Iran's money? The only apparent witness left, beside the president, told Congress the buck stopped below Mr. Reagan.
I made a very deliberate decision not to ask the president so that I could insulate him from the decision and provide some future deniability for the president if it ever leaked out.
But Poindexter's trial coming up may shed more light on that decision, which polls indicate Americans find hard to believe. Was William Casey, now deceased director of the CIA, the secret spy master behind North, approving the diversion? North says yes, but no other witnesses have backed his claim. It's likely to be one of many secrets that were buried with Casey. For the future of the country, perhaps the most troubling secret is how could a small band of unelected secret operators keep the truth from the public, and even the president, who at first downplayed the arms sales to Iran as minor.
These modest deliveries taken together could easily fit into a single cargo plane.
Can it happen again? If secrecy and misleading Congress worked once.
There is no absolute guarantee to keep it from happening again. It depends upon the acceptance by a president of our system of laws.
And Dan, perhaps the most striking and troubling thing that I encountered in researching this story was that no one I called, not government scholars, not politicians, not historians, could offer any law or any change in our structure of government that would prevent such a thing from happening again. Dan?
Eric, some of the larger issues in the whole Iran Central America situation were seemingly ignored by the jury. Now, we know that some of the jurors said, well, they were confused by a lot of what happened.
And you must remember that this case was not tried over the question of whether Oliver North violated any laws in diverting funds to the Contras. Those charges were all dropped long before this case came to trial. It's interesting, as those who follow criminal justice cases often note, that it's the little things that'll get you in the chasing after wrongdoing, and Oliver North ends up being convicted on what most people would regard as a minor crime, $13,000 received for putting up a fence to protect his family.
Good point. Rita Braver, you've talked to some members of the jury and watched this case from beginning to end. Such things as typing the fake letter seem to have made a big impression, or did it strike you that the jury was impressed by that kind of thing?
That certainly did seem like something that they were impressed with. That was the issue of typing the fake letter about the security fence count. And Dan, I think that you're right when you suggest, and when Eric suggests, that there were two cases going on here. One, the case that Oliver North's lawyers were trying to get the jury to focus on, the big foreign policy issues, those big issues. And then there was the dirty street fight that the prosecution was trying to get them to focus on, trying to paint Oliver North as a liar and a crook. The jury seems to have come down somewhere in between those two things in its verdict.
Thank you, Rita Braver. Leslie Stahl, who's been watching all of this at the White House and monitoring what's happening there, is with us this evening. Leslie, still a lot of unanswered questions about George Bush's role or lack of role in all of this. The president today denied at least one of the rather consistent accusations, never proven accusations made against him.
Well, he specifically and very narrowly denied that he discussed a quid pro quo exchanging U.S. aid for help for the Contras with the president of Honduras. Dan, I think that the White House probably has three worries tonight. That is that this whole issue will begin to absorb the presidency, that more and more questions, new questions that did come up at the trial, will begin to hound the president. Secondly, that he will face pressure mostly from conservatives to pardon Oliver North. And if there was a cover-up, as the prosecutor in the case charged, that now that somebody has been convicted, that other people who come up for trial and other people in the case might begin to talk to win leniency in sentencing, and things could begin to unravel. So I think the White House does have many things to contemplate tonight in this conviction of Oliver North.
Well, that's something interesting to consider. You're suggesting that the prosecutors still feel that they could, in their language, flip somebody.
Well, you know,
Hakeem, Secord, Poindexter?
It happened in Watergate, Dan. Both you and I were there at that time, and you know that there was a cover-up in that case. And as people began to contemplate going to jail, they would go before the grand jury and begin to tell more and more, hoping to win leniency in sentencing, and maybe even in lesser charges in that case. And that's traditional in these kinds of cases, that the prosecutor would push for that kind of thing.
We shall see. Leslie Stahl, thank you. Quickly, let's bring you up to date now on tonight's other headline story. The Space Shuttle Magellan mission. Atlantis, the space shuttle, late tonight released the Magellan spacecraft from the shuttle cargo bay. Here you see pictures of it. What a picture. High above the Earth, there it goes, headed for Venus. The Magellan is off on a 15-month voyage of 800 million miles. Destination, the hot planet Venus, to explore what's going on underneath that thick cloud cover around the planet and steaming 900-degree temperatures on Venus. As Magellan heads out on its cosmic journey, closer to home, as we leave you this evening, the end of the Oliver North trial. But this is not the end of the case, nor of the questions. The trials of former National Security Advisor John Poindexter, North's boss at one time, arms dealer Albert Hakeem, and North operative Richard Secord are all still to come. They may shed more light on secret sales of weapons to Iran, about the skimming of profits, about secret and possibly law-breaking aid to Nicaraguan rebels, about accusations involving higher-ups and cover-ups. Juries will decide the fates of men, as a jury did with Oliver North today. But ultimately, the weapons for Iran, what happened to the money case, is about more than who got the cash and who broke the law. It is a reminder to the defendants, to their superiors, and to all of the rest of us of the larger issues at stake: accountability in government, our uniquely American constitutional system of checks and balances, and how no one is above the law. For CBS News, Dan Rather in New York. Harry Smith and Kathleen Sullivan will have the latest on the shuttle and the trial aftermath on CBS this morning. Charlie Rose will be along with Night Watch at 2:30 Eastern Time tomorrow morning. For now, good night.
Attention shredded wheat eaters, you've been missing something.
Every woman knows that a good diet, medical care, and exercise can make you look and feel better. It's a good idea at any age. But there comes a time when taking care of yourself is not just for looks. After age 55, a woman's risk of heart attack triples. Find out what you can do today. Call the American Heart Association.
The North verdict has been a CBS News special report. This is CBS.